if they're just kind of trying to do a little bit all the time, they're not going to see that, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Do you test or like actually test, or do you
So
just trial and error?
every client.
I mean, like if you do just trial and error, or do you actually get a specific test?
So I use the biosignature, and on the biosignature was developed by Charles Poliquin, who's a world famous strength coach. So I've been trained, done a lot of courses with Charles and a lot of his trainings. And the biosignature is essentially a 12-site body fat method. One of the sites is an overview of what your hormones are doing, okay? So one of the indicators is the upper back fat, and that is an indicator of how well genetically you tolerate carbs. So for example, if I have a client working with them, if their lower back fat is really low, then I know that they're going to need to have more carbs. If it's really high, then I know that it's probably a fat and protein diet. But then again, in 2 weeks' time, I'm going to test them. So I've got their total body fat. Let's say they start with me at 20%. In 2 weeks, if it's 18%, we're good. There's not much change that needs to take place. We're going to keep tracking and keep getting results. The body fat, the biosignature is a body fat test. So
I've done a body scan before. Is that the same thing?
No, you use it by hand. Unless you've had a biosignature practitioner do it, it's a specific protocol and method developed by Charles. Yeah.
Do you want to keep asking questions, or do you want to continue?
We'll keep going. I'll continue with this, and then we'll come back to the questions.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I just want to check in to see where everyone was at before we move on. Okay, so this is half cut off. So simple things to improve body comp, and I'll need a review to the board again. But here's a simple one: cut all grains and gluten. Okay. Gluten builds plaque on the brain. It slows you down. Some people are obviously more sensitive to gluten than not. My mentor on this topic is Dr. Thomas O'Brien, who I actually did a podcast with, which you all can listen. I've actually done over 23 podcasts with world-famous health experts. That's at www.maximusmark.com/radio, or you can search Maximus Mark on iTunes to have that. They're all free. You can download any of them and all of them. But the one on gluten, again, Dr. Thomas O'Brien quotes some research and some papers where he says 70% of the population actually has some form of sensitivity to gluten. Okay, so it's not only that it's going to make you, it's not about making you fat or overweight or any of these things. Although as a side effect, when you do cut gluten, I always find people do lose weight a lot faster. If that's just the one change, you cut gluten for vegetables, you'll see a rapid change in body composition. I see that quite frequently. So that's the first thing, and minimizing grains and wheat. And most people do have some form, I find. The best test for this isn't actually a blood test. You simply do what you're doing now, you cut it. If you feel better in 2 weeks, great. They're probably not for you. Reintroduce it. If you find you get a lot of gas, wind, all those type of things, you have your answer. For some people, it doesn't affect, yeah? But if you're kind of one of these people, it's kind of like riding a bike, the same bike every day, and then you get a new bike and you didn't realize how bad your old bike was. Yeah? So they're things to watch for. Cut supermarket dairy. The reason why supermarket dairy is insidious is because you got to remember that 2-litre bottle of milk that's sitting in your fridge isn't from one cow. It's from 10,000 cows. That then has gone off into a truck. It's been homogenized and pasteurized, which is basically another word of saying bastardized. It's rapid heating. It's removed all the goodness out of that milk, and then it's been fortified with, calcium, which milk should have calcium in it anyway, but because it's been pasteurized and homogenized, the calcium content is obviously diminished. The other problem with commercial milk is you're not getting it from grass-fed cows. You're getting it from grain-fed cows. And the reason why they feed cows grain is because cows can produce something like 12,000 litres of milk more than if you fed them grass. Okay? So if you can get grass-fed milk, fantastic. Grain-fed milk, which is what you're going to be buying in your commercialized supermarket, isn't so good for you. As well, it's been, as I said before, pasteurized and homogenized. And that is, dairy is often linked, if there's any skin conditions in the room, most of the time dairy is linked, if you have any skin conditions, to some form of intolerance to dairy. So that's a good one to know. But again, with all of these, if you cut them out, simply as cut them out, if you feel better cutting them out, then you know you have your answer. Yeah? Where should you buy milk from? So you didn't hear this from me. Again, this is only a recommendation, right? It's not what I'm saying to do, because this is what I would do if I was buying milk. I go to the Queen Victoria markets and I buy raw milk. Okay, it's called bath milk. In Australia, it's illegal to sell raw milk for the consumption, but it's not illegal to sell raw milk to use on your skin. So of course, when I buy it, I'm soaking my feet in it, yeah? Soy, cut soy. Soy is an estrogen mimicking basically soy is estrogen mimicking, full stop, disrupts thyroid. 95% of the world's soy supply is genetically modified food. Now, to do genetically modified food justice, I'd probably need a whole presentation on its own. The guy who I like to listen to about genetically modified food, his name is Jeffrey Smith, and he's from responsibletechnology.org. Basically, in a nutshell, they've genetically modified the soybean so it produces its own amount of pesticides so that when you spray the soybean with pesticides, it is pesticide resistant, if that makes sense. So they're splicing. The way they found the genetic resistant gene was because a company by the name of Monsanto was dumping pesticides in this, I guess, dump, and there was an algae that was growing. And they go, oh, that's interesting, we're dumping pesticides, nothing should live here. So they got the sample of the algae, and they sampled it, and they found there was a gene that was resistant to the pesticides. So they go, okay, well, we can play with this, manipulate it, and insert it into the soybean, plant the soybean, and then spray acres and acres of pesticide over that soybean, which, by the way, pesticide in itself is a xenoestrogen. Xenoestrogens, again, are just estrogen-mimicking compounds. As males, we want to promote testosterone, not estrogen. Even in females, the xenoestrogens are insidious. Okay, so it's not just males. Xenoestrogens altogether are bad for your health because they disrupt the natural balance of your endocrine system. Okay, so they're not good for you, in other words. Summary. So soy is bad for a number of reasons. And another good book, if you want to talk more about soy, actually, you don't have to buy the book. Go onto westernaprice.org and search soy. You'll see plenty of articles by a lady by the name of Kayla D. Daniels. She's done probably the most work in popularizing why soy is bad for you. No trans fats. I say to people, these are things that won't add to your health. You want to avoid them as much as possible. What are trans fats? Well, basically any of your vegetable oils, margarine, canola oil, all of these things. You want to, again, hunted fish, gathered and plucked. Canola oil, margarine, developed around trans fats, shortening, was developed in 1911 by the company by the name of Procter & Gamble. Canola oil became obviously popular after that, but yeah, not good for you. Point number 5 is actually meet a protein goal, and I've spelt meat as in meat, a protein goal, like eat meat, eat red meat, eat white meat, eat fish, eat meat in your diet. If you're not so big on meat, at least have it once a day, yeah? Have some meat, especially as males. You're gonna need it. Yeah? If you're wanting to build mass and build muscle, look, there are some people who do vegan diets and they build muscle, they get lean. I've never gotten anyone lean on a vegan diet. I don't know anyone who's gotten anyone lean on a vegan diet. I'm sure it's possible. Do I do it? No. Do I recommend it? It's not what I do, yeah? If you want that, speak to a vegan who's had success in that. And just a side note on that, I interviewed Leah Keith, she wrote the book, The Vegetarian Myth. So if you're into the politics of food, I do have a podcast about that. And she wrote a book after 22 years of being a vegan. She wrote the book called The Vegetarian Myth. And it's a fascinating look at why vegetarianism isn't the diet that is going to essentially do all these things that vegans claim, which is, the morals of a vegan is not what's bad. Justice, compassion for animals, that is absolutely spot on. It's just how they go about doing it, supporting things like soy and wheat. If you're not eating localized food, essentially, if you're a vegan, you're going to be eating a lot more soy and wheat. Okay, those companies are essentially the same companies that do the factory farming. Yeah, so Monsanto, Tyson, all these foods. It's a continuing cycle. So the only way to get off that treadmill, so to speak, is to buy local. I just gave you, a summary of that. But yeah, if you want more, it's there. Yeah, just look up on my website. Eat plenty of green vegetables, which I've already covered. Okay, liquids. It's something astounding at the moment. I think it's around 40 or 50% of Americans get approximately, actually no, it's more. I think it's about 80% of Americans get around 50% of their daily calories from liquids, which is astounding. So you're saying people are drinking around 1,000 to 2,000 calories just from their liquids. That is insane. We were never designed to deal with that. That's why diabetes is on the rise. Okay, coffee is good for you, provided you buy it organic. Please do not buy decaf. When you get decaf, essentially it's all the chemicals that go in it to strip the caffeine away. Okay, so coffee is fine. Coffee is actually, there's a lot of polyphenols in coffee, and in research, there's actually science, they've shown that coffee drinkers compared to non-coffee drinkers live on average 5 years longer. Okay, so people who drink coffee, again, but that's one thing you do want to buy organic, and that isn't a license to drink 6 cups of coffee a day. 1 or 2 cups of coffee a day isn't going to kill you. Yeah. Next one is tea. You can obviously mix and match your teas. That's another one you want to use loose leaf teas. In the tea bag, what's the compound? I think it's hexanes or, no, it's not. It's chlorinated. It's bleached. Often tea bags are bleached. That's not so good for you. Yeah. So if you're going to drink a lot of tea, if tea is a normal part of your diet, use loose leaf tea. Okay. And obviously water. Yeah.
Is it coffee and tea or coffee or tea?
Oh, both. Either or. Not to quote me on this, but I think one is better for, I guess, heart disease, and the other one's better for, yeah. It's like which study you look at will show one is better for this, one is better for that. But